How's the coffee?
Yeah, it's delicious.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Joey from Jungle Brothers, eh?
Yep.
Who are you? I first met you at Lift, I think, when you were there for some casual visits, and I was at reception, I think.
Yep. You asked me if I was a gymnast.
Yeah, that's funny. Because I remember that I just started getting into gymnastic bodies.
Yep.
And I saw that you were doing some cool stuff on the red mat at Lift, and I remember walking up to you and asking what you were doing, and I was telling very proudly that I was doing gymnastic bodies at the time. And I think that's the first time I met you, and then I saw you again at the Elo Patel movement meeting, maybe a year or so after.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was, in Rockdale, right?
Yeah.
It's funny,
right.
when I was turning in here today, onto Mitchell, I saw Convey, the owner of that gym.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, just driving out. I was like, oh, there's Convey. I haven't seen him for a long time. Good guy.
Yeah. What are you doing today? Who are you today compared to them? Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess I was a gym owner then, and I was, doing the movement thing, and I was probably training a lot more then than I am now.
Yeah.
Then compared to what I am now. Now the workload of the Jungle Brothers has increased.
That's cool.
It's kind of what you want.
Yeah.
But so there's more on the table. There's more to be done. So training has dropped off a little bit, and I think that I allowed that to happen because I wasn't really interested in training 4 hours a day forever.
Yeah.
It was nice for a little while.
Because you were training with Edo for a while.
Yeah, about 6 or 7 months.
Yeah. And what happened after that? Did you
After that I just I just freestyled for a while.
Yeah.
I felt like Ido's stuff was the expected kind of curve of, adaptation.
Yeah.
Is very steep, and I was like, well, I can't really keep up with this.
Yeah.
So then I just sort of continued to work on the same type of stuff, but probably at a slower pace.
Cool.
For a couple of years, and then, more recently jumped into some online programming with Emmett Lewis.
Yes. Which I started with yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. Had a first consult yesterday, and then filming some testing and some videos today.
Nice.
Very excited.
Yeah, it's a fun stage of the process. Huh?
Yeah. Establishing where you are.
Yeah. That's cool. And also you don't know what's coming, right?
Exactly.
So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, look, did that, and I actually just went off his online programming. I worked with him for about a year and a half.
Yep.
Went off a few weeks ago, so
yep.
Yeah, so it was all kind of little parts here and there that have formed the whole.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, how long has Jungle Brothers been open for now?
We've had a gym for almost 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so like 3.5, I guess.
Yeah.
I measure it in Christmas parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that when you first opened, just before Christmas?
I can't even remember. I think so.
Yeah.
But I just know that we've had like 3 Christmas parties because they're always monumental events.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's like, okay, we've been open for that long.
Yeah.
About.
Yeah.
But we were operating for probably 2 years before that.
Yeah.
It was mainly just me running some classes. I did 1 class a week in Erskineville, in Erskineville Oval, and then a couple a week in Surrey Hills. And it wasn't really much going on, but that was the start of it, and then eventually we moved into a gym.
That's cool. So, I've been down to Jungle Brothers a few times, and I really enjoy it. Despite that I am not a member of yours, I always feel like I'm part of your community to some degree.
Wow.
And
what a lovely compliment.
Yeah, and I think it's because of all the things that you do, which is very similar to what I do and what I teach, and sort of the area of training, if you like, that we are both sort of into. But you also have a bit of fighting on your timetable, which is very interesting. So you do strength and movement and a lot of mobility work, and then you have the fighting aspect of it as well. How did that come into the timetable?
It's a cool question. was always a part of the philosophy for us, because it was always a part of our own personal development.
So all of you are doing some kind of fighting?
Yeah, we all sort of grew up with it in some way. So, you know, I had a mixed exposure as a kid, judo and karate and the sort of standard ones that you do for 6 months and whatever.
Yeah.
But my brother, like most kids who were born most boys, I guess, in the mid 80s, not only boys, but Bruce Lee, Van Damme, Chuck Norris, like watching all these guys. So I had posters, I had nunchucks, I had weapons, I had a sword that used to live on my wall.
Yeah.
I used to dress up as Bruce Lee at the book parade. I'd like spray paint my hair black and like I just wanted to be Bruce, right? So that was my whole thing. I had an older brother who was into kung fu, and he was training, you know, quite heavily for a while there, and he would come and teach me things. And then later, in my 20s, I would find Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that for me was pretty much the start of my proper physical training.
Yeah.
I didn't do any strength conditioning. I did nothing.
Yeah.
Besides have fun, you know, as a teenager in early 20s, and then I found Jiu-Jitsu, and that pushed me towards where I am now. But then Tiora, one of the one of the other owners of the three, he had a lot of stuff going in his background, but Thai boxing was always a big part of his life, and he was very good at it. I had a couple of fights. And Paul, in his own journey, boxing, also kung fu. He had a brother who was a very high-level kung fu practitioner and was actually a real ass kicker. Was like known for being a good street fighter. But so that was always part of it. And so even once we sort of moved into the, you know, fitness and the personal training thing and all of that, we always had the fighting thing close to our heart. Yeah. And I think that, yeah, exactly. And I think that we probably attribute the fight work to teaching us the greatest lessons. Yeah. You know, so it's like, I was thinking about it when you mentioned you wanted to talk about that you know, for a lot of people, they're just exercising to exercise. Like maybe they're trying to, you know, some people have a very specific goal. Yep. Most people, general population, are just trying to reduce the negative impact that their lifestyle has on their body, right? Yeah. You know, it's a sad way to put it. Yeah. So having the fight thing gives you something to train for in a way, because it's like, oh, I use strength conditioning so I can be better on the mats, or so I can be better at Muay Thai, or I can, you know what I mean? Yeah. And even if you don't really want to do that, it's still kind of cool to connect the dots in a way that, oh, this helps me to pursue something, yeah. Or maybe it's rock climbing, or, you know what I mean, or salsa dancing, whatever. Yeah. So you know, in terms of it becoming part of the Jungle Brothers, that's why we wanted to have it. It was always a big thing for us, but also we knew that it would be an important sort of cornerstone for our members, or for the kinds of people we wanted to you know, the kind of culture that we wanted to build, and people we wanted to attract.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's funny, because when I first started to talk to Emmett about training with him, he said, oh, okay, so what do you want to, what are your goals, what do you want to do, and, you know, and I said to him, oh, you know, it would be cool to work on my front levers and back levers and tuck planche and muscle ups and all of that sort of thing. And he's like, okay, but after that, like, what do you want to do after that? And I'm like, not sure. He's like, okay, you need to go and try a dance class, you need to try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you need to try acrobatics, you need to try a few different things, like an activity, like a sport or something, because that is going to be so much easier for me to program for you, for the strength and mobility, to, you know, get better at that thing, whatever that thing is for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Right?
Yeah, and it really made me think, like, oh, you know, like, I've always thought that I sucked at dancing, for example, but I've always wanted to do it because it looks so awesome.
A particular type, or just?
Yeah, I think it's more like contemporary.
Oh, wow.
I think, yeah. Okay. So I'm going on Sunday.
I'm gonna try shit. It.
Yeah.
How so cool.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. But it leads me into the next question, because I know that both of us are very big on mobility training. and I'm about to launch my new website called mobilitytraining.com.au.
Yes.
Hopefully
Awesome.
that will be up and running when I post this.
I can't wait for that. Yeah.
So I know that it's very important for you guys and for what you do, and it's a big part of your training and the classes that you run. Just as it's very it's close to my heart as well, and a big component of what I do with my clients. But what is mobility training for you?
So it's I see it as a the more I do of it, the more I see it. It kind of blurs the line, like the line between strength and flexibility gets blurred.
Yeah.
Because the mobility training really starts to just become an approach to your strength training or your physical development that is necessary in order to reach new heights of strength, right? And if we're talking about strength and defining it, you can define it many ways, but I think one of the ways that I like to look at it is it's being physically durable and being strong in as many different ways as possible. So like you want that base level strength, deadlifting and squatting and all those things, pressing and pulling and whatnot, but you also want a body that's kind of dynamic and supple and not, it's not fragile, it's anti-fragile. To steal a term from that author.
Yeah.
But so it's so the mobility thing is like, how do you approach that, right? And I guess it's kind of a bit of a supplementary part, for training. So for most of the people I'm working with, they kind of know that they need to get more flexible.
Yeah.
And we kind of just throw the two terms out, even though they're a bit different. It's like, yeah, flexible, mobile, whatever. Let's do more of that.
Yeah.
But they know they need more of it, but they also don't want to do too much of it, right? It's generally not considered the fun stuff.
Yep.
So the way we would use it, say at Jungle Brothers, or the way I use it in my own training, because I'm just as guilty of not, committing to it as much as I should have over the years. I try to just piece it in. So it's like, okay, if I'm going to train 5 times this week, one of those sessions will be mobility based.
Yeah.
Or 2 of them. And that doesn't mean I'm not doing mobility work in the other sessions. It just means that the intention behind, that 20% is a bit more clear and a bit more dedicated towards increasing range of motion.
Yeah.
And building strength in those positions.
I've listened to quite a few podcasts from America lately, and they seem to be using the word mobility for describing what I would describe is flexibility.
Okay.
So basically they're
define it for me, or tell me there.
So they're talking about mobility training as just sort of increasing range of motion, whilst the way that I would just describe mobility training would be as a 3-part process, where you have stability training, flexibility training, and strength. But as you said before, some of these gets a bit blurred sometimes. For me, I think flexibility would be pure stretching, like getting range of motion, like basically your ability to express range of motion in a joint. Then stability for me would be your ability to maintain a position of a joint, rather. So if you think about the shoulder, the rotator cuff, keeping the humerus in its socket, sort of thing.
Yeah, under some kind of load, or
under some kind of stress or so, or even standing on one leg and balancing and keep maintaining the position.
Yep.
And then obviously you have the strength, which is your ability to express force or pressure of some sort. So doing a squat or deadlift or something like that. But like you said before, like they would be quite blurred. Like sometimes you find that you can say that a squat is a mobility exercise, but you can also have more emphasis on pure strength when you're doing that exercise. So for me, then that would depend on the goal. Like if you are a fighter and how much range of motion you need and how much strength and all that stuff you need for fighting versus a gymnast versus a powerlifter, for example. Because the squat, if you think about like powerlifting, for example, it's a really good example where you, the main focus is strength. Therefore, they don't go ass to grass. They don't go all the way down. But if I would use a squat movement as a mobility exercise.
Main focus strength, or is the main focus the numbers? Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah. Then if I would use the squat as a mobility exercise, I would go all the way down, focus on form, and I shouldn't say form, I should probably say function, maybe, or expressing as great movement as you possibly can in a squat.
Yeah, extracting as much from that one simple movement. Yeah.
That's sort of the way that I differentiate between the different ones. Because I think...
I totally agree.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. And I think it's... I think, especially today, like in this day and age, it's important to use correct terms and communicate very clearly. Because words do matter, I think.
Yeah.
And being able to explain the difference between mobility and flexibility and mobility and strength could be quite useful for some people.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's probably a bit, for a lot of people, it's a bit mystical.
Yeah.
I think still a lot of people, particularly who have come through CrossFit, would think that mobility is lying around on a lacrosse ball as well.
That's true.
You know, because they've only ever seen a Kelly Starrett video on YouTube, and it's,
True.
you know, been to a few classes, and that's, mobility is doing some kind of self fascial release before, you know, before whatever, push pressing. So I totally get it, and I guess that's why when I mentioned that the line between strength and mobility gets blurred more and more, because
it does. I agree.
Like if you're programming squats, right, all you have to adjust is the tempo, and it goes from being a very mobility heavy drill to being a very strength or power driven drill.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's nuance. Like it's a small detail, right?
Yeah.
It makes a lot of difference.
Oh.
So I like say, you know, with a lot of our members and stuff, I'm sure that they look at it sometimes and they're like, what's with the fucking tempo, man? Like, why the numbers? You know, why do I have to try and read this shit? I just want to do the push-ups or whatever. And it's like, there's too much behind it to explain sometimes in that short exchange. But I think that the more people can put, you know, the more they can have understanding around this difference and this variation, I think it's going to help.
Yeah, I think it could potentially change the intention during the workout as well.
Yeah.
If you're more clear of what the intention with this exercise is, then you know, okay, this is what I need to focus on.
So then with mobility training, your mobility training, you know, how much of an emphasis on strength is there? And I ask from a perspective of someone who comes to you and says, yeah, it's cool, I want to do the stretching and I want you to make me, you know, get more range and stuff, but I want to squat real heavy.
Yeah.
Do you say to that person, cool, well, you should go talk to the powerlifting coach? Or are you like, yeah, cool, let's work on that, but, you know, what's the...
It's a very good question. If they want to do powerlifting, I would send them to someone else. But if they want to do squatting and lift heavy, but more for the sake of still keeping great function in their body and great movement, I would definitely do that with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I guess what's the, you know, how much of, what's the split? Are you talking, you know, is it like...
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. I do think that there needs to be some level of stability, strength and flexibility to have great mobility and also stay injury free, or as much as that can be, as much as that can happen. But to some degree, and this is a mistake that I've done in the past where I've worked a lot on flexibility and stability, and I've neglected some of the strength because I haven't felt like I was stable and like flexible enough.
Yeah.
And that just goes on and on and on and on. At some point, you need to stop being in that little box and start doing some strength movements, and sometimes sacrifice a bit of form, I think, if you want to build a bit of strength.
Okay.
It's never really, it could be linear to some degree, but I think that the three go hand in hand. But I do think that if you want to build more strength, you probably do need to deviate a little bit from doing a lot of stability stuff to doing more big compound movements, and potentially when you're getting into the heavier weights, definitely sacrifice form to some degree, not so that it gets dangerous obviously, but to some degree.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you say form, you're talking a little bit like range of motion as well.
Yeah, range of motion
short
for sure.
motor touch.
I also think that when we talk about strength, even though I do promote going all the way down in a squat, I don't think that it's appropriate for everyone.
Yeah.
It depends on injuries. Some people can't go ass to grass without knees hurting, whatever it is at the moment. There is probably other components you need to work on more. The other thing is, what's your goal? If you do want to get into powerlifting eventually, then ass to grass is probably not the best idea.
Yeah, better to invest your time elsewhere.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a good point. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's funny, right? Like there's this, you can kind of simplify and say that there's a bit of a spectrum that most people sit on, and it tends to, somewhere on one end is like really strong and really tight, and then on the other end is weak and really loose.
Yeah.
And both have their benefits and both have their drawbacks.
Yeah.
And I guess if you look at the typical or conventional methods of training, people tend to work on one of those things.
Yeah.
So like the guy that goes to the gym 5 days a week and does back and bis and, the bodybuilder split, is probably not putting any thought into the mobility side of things. And as a result, he's really tight, and that's going to hold him back and probably cause some injuries at some point.
Yeah.
But he's also going to be pretty jacked and build lots of muscle, and that's, that's the benefit in that system, right?
Yeah.
Based on what he wants. And then you could take like the standard, and I always use this, and no offense to the ladies out there, but the yoga girl, who just does yoga all the time.
Yeah.
And I know there's heaps of different types, but whatever, let's just say it's like the one where you're hanging out in long hold stretches, and and you are building some strength. And there's a whole bunch of other good things, but for a lot of these people, they're just getting more and more range, but they don't have any adequate kind of structure, right? Stability or strength to support it.
Yeah.
So it's like you get these little lower back injuries, and hips that are all wiggly, and like all these kind of interesting. So it's like, well, if she did a little bit of what he's doing, and if he did a little bit, and then you can meet in the middle, and that's a nice balance, right?
Yeah.
I think I get where I know how you work, and I think it's similar to us. It's like you identify what the person's goal is, but then you identify what they need.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool, you want to get here, you actually need to do a bit of this first.
Yeah.
So let's kind of do what we need to get you onto that track.
Yeah.
But it's not just, okay, let's go for that.
Yeah. It's such a fine balance. And I mean, something that I really admire that you guys are doing at JB is the community that you have built over the years, and the way you engage the people as well. Like, can you tell me how have you built this, and how do you keep people engaged? Like you mentioned just before, giving them something that they want, but also something that they need. Like, how do you do it?
That's cool. I think a lot of it comes down to, there's a few factors. One is leading from the front.
Yeah.
So everything that we do at Jungle Brothers is a reflection of what we're doing in our own training. So it's constantly evolving. And, you know, as we're learning new things in our own study, in our own training, in our own lives, whatever, that then gets integrated into the class programming.
Cool.
So, yeah, so like, you know, a really great example of it is one of our most popular class now, like the one that people like fucking love religiously is the Tuesday night 7:15 stretch class with Tiora.
Awesome.
Yeah, he runs a 1 hour stretch class. He turns the lights off. He puts on we've got some film lights from when we used to be in the film industry. So he puts a couple of little film lights on, like just sort of dim into the wall so it's nice and soft. And then he plays like this really deep house kind of spiritual stuff. And it's like, and then people just get into these crazy positions and using a lot of the stuff that, you know, we've learned from Emmett and from, you know, physical alchemy and the likes. And the thing is, you know, it's a really lovely way to wind down on a Tuesday night, and people do a heavy class before, so it's a perfect complement.
Yeah.
But people feel the difference. So they come away from it and they're like, fuck, I was really sore after that, but man, my hips feel great. The next day, my lower back's feeling really good, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So the proof is there. And that whole class was born out of Tiora's own personal journey with flexibility.
Yeah.
He's always been a really tight guy.
I followed him.
Okay, yeah, you've seen him,
Yeah,
right?
I've seen his progress.
Yeah, and he's made these tiny little gains, and he's so proud of them when he gets
Yeah.
there, because he's like, you know, I haven't been able to fucking touch my toes for however many years or whatever. He can well and truly touch his toes, but I'm making him out to sound like he's really, really inflexible. But, you know, so he's been on this whole path. So people are seeing that, and then he starts to teach it, and I think that honesty creates belief, you know, or faith in, okay, well, it's going to work for us too.
Yeah.
Similar to myself, you know, and Paul, we all, and Alan, and all of our coaches, we all contribute to that. I think that's how the community forms and the trust builds, is because we're not bullshitting anyone.
Yeah.
And as we're learning it, we're teaching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely, you know, if you went back 5 years ago, we didn't put much time into stretching.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I shouldn't say stretching, but let's say mobility work. We didn't, you know, it really didn't get much of a look in because we didn't realize the importance of it.
Yeah.
Now it's huge, and we're like, okay. And, you know, if you can convince somebody for long enough so that they can see the result, you know, whatever it takes, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, then you've got them.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's cool.
Yeah.
So one thing that I take away from what you just said is that you basically immerse yourself in the methods and in the community. Like you're not just someone that goes there, teaches a class, don't really engage outside, don't really, you know, care too much outside of the class. You're there, you show up, and you've done the work. It's like the line between being a teacher and being a student is a little bit more grey, potentially, than normally, in one way.
Yeah. I think that's a fair.
But I mean, at the same time, obviously, you are leading by example, and you are taking the lead, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
you
cool.
know, yeah, it's good, and I think, like, you know, it's hard to imagine doing it any other way for us, you know, like the same as you would be, you know, when you got your own spot and you got your own people. It's like, you know, I feel guilty when I go and train at Lift. So I'm like, someone's going to see this on my Instagram and be like, why is he not training here in his gym? You know, it's only once a week.
Yeah.
But
maybe twice.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the being a part of the community and being friends with the people and hanging out outside of the time in classes and all those things contributes to that. You know, and then it's like, you know, and again, the leading from the front thing, it's like, well, even as I've gotten more flexible, I've maintained my strength.
Yeah.
And I'm still, you know, for the general person, they're still like, fuck, you're really strong. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, so I can, you know, at this point, I can still exemplify that you can be this and this and this. It doesn't just have to be one.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that goes a long way.
That's awesome. So we spoke a bit briefly at the gym this morning about sort of when I find a word to sort of put us in, like in a category, I don't want to call it gymnastics because I don't think that what we do is necessarily gymnastics. Potentially calisthenics is a bit better word, or movement. I'm not really sure. Anyway, let's not put a label on us. Let's keep it there. How do you feel that the culture in this type of training is in Sydney and sort of overall? We spoke a bit about it this morning.
Digging for some dirt here.
Only if you want to reveal something. Up to you.
Look, I think it's I mean, most people are going to call it the movement culture, right? Most
That's
of the people
true.
that we know within it, and it just depends on what you've been exposed to. If you're from the CrossFit world, then you look at what we do and it's gymnastics.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, and I think there's only a very small community around this approach to training.
Yeah.
And this kind of openness, so I think for us at the moment it's kind of cool because it means that the few people that are in it are like linked very quickly and very easily because you're almost in you're surrounded by people that aren't so familiar with it.
Yeah.
So when you see someone that is, it's like, oh cool, like we're a similar type of person.
Yeah.
We relate on this thing.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool, as in I've always had great experiences as a result of spending time with people in this community. And I know that I have, people all around this city, this country, around the world that I can go to for help or, whatever, just, as a friend.
Yeah. Because
we've spent time together training and we relate and we, exchange information and whatever. There is definitely a side to it where it's, there's some branding or some kind of like certain factions of it that are bred, and I don't think that comes from the individuals. It tends to come. It's good marketing, and it's people who are clutching onto something that they've tried to claim as their own.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the tide is shifting towards it just being an open source thing. Take someone like Emma Lewis and the work those guys are doing, and like Motion Impulse.
Yeah.
And they're bringing all these great people out and putting them on tours around the world.
So good.
And they're running these workshops, and the workshops are open to all. They're not crazy expensive.
Yeah.
They're really lovely people. They're very well trained. Like they're trained a fuckload, so they're truly experts.
Yeah.
But they've got no ego about themselves, and they I think Emmett was saying like they get together once a year in Europe, and they do like a get together, and people come in and they just teach things and learn, and then you just mingle.
Yeah.
And I thought that's probably more where the real culture of it will go. There'll always be the people that are trying to monetize the ownership aspect of it. I guess that's part of it, right? Especially as it gets bigger.
Yeah, I guess so. It's so I started my journey with gymnastics and movement and this whole round of training with gymnastic bodies. And the last year or two, since I got into the Emmett stuff, and I've done a couple of courses with Kit and Liv at Stretch Therapy. Especially the stretch therapy and how Kit and Liv, it's very open. And Emmett is as well, and it's something that I will probably experience a bit more as I go along now. But I remember when I did the teacher's course at Stretch Therapy last year, and Kit was saying, look, you can take this information and you can do whatever you want with it. Like, it's not ours to keep. We give that to you, and we have it, like we have plenty of videos on YouTube and Vimeo, and it's open source. Like, it's out there for anyone to use because we want people to get better. And that really, I really remember that because I hadn't had that experience with other methods previous to that where they were so open and they're like, yeah, just go use it, start teaching and use our stuff. Like, just, you know,
Yeah.
obviously it's nice to be credited, and it's obviously something that is nice to do, but it's not like this is mine and you can't have it and you can't use it because this is our method and you need to pay us
Yeah.
if you're going to use this or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that is really cool, and I think that is a big part of sort of the movement culture of our sort of profession in Sydney as well. Like I really, like I said to you this morning, like how far away are we from each other? Like 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, not far.
And we can choose to be complete enemies and rivals, or we can choose to be friends and supportive and, you know, help each other out.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of times where we've referred clients to each other, or I come down to Jungle Brothers and I do courses and you come up to lift, and it's just such a great environment to be in. And as far as I see it, it's just positive,
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like I mentioned this morning, I feel like we're, you could consider us in a way early adopters of this style of training, and perhaps that adds to us being able to collaborate easier.
Yeah.
I was like thinking like fast forward 30 years, say if all the personal trainers are doing what we're doing, then does it become a little bit more of a Shark Tank kind of vibe?
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope not. I don't actually think it would, because I think that the style of training, you have to put too much time into it.
Yeah.
You got to invest too much time into it in order to get to a point where you can then coach it or whatever. Like, you really have to embody it in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's I think that it kind of comes easy to us to have this mutual kind of support for each other. But for others, maybe people who are a bit more enterprising or business minded, maybe that takes precedence sometimes, and then it's like, oh, okay, fuck it.
Yeah. Maybe that's
You're
why.
my enemy.
Maybe that's why we're missing out. We're not
that's right.
business minded enough.
That's why we're not making the big bucks, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks for joining me.
Dude, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.